Hello and welcome to the matchup presented by Shell Polymers. We're going to be getting you ready for the Steelers' second game of the 2024 season when they visit the Denver Broncos. We're coming to you from across the Steelers' social media and digital platforms. When I say we, I mean myself, Rob King, and Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson, who of course you know from The Drive. And before we look too far ahead, guys, let's look back at the opening weekend win, 18-10 down in Atlanta.
Yeah, impressive defensive performance. If you looked at that, the Steelers gave up that opening drive for a field goal. After that, it was just a one touchdown drive at the end of the first half. Just over 50 yards to overall to the Falcons in the second half of that game. Really slammed the door on them. And
Justin Fields making the start at quarterback.
Yeah, and they did enough on offense. I mean, the offense wasn't super dynamic. They didn't find the end zone. Chris Boswell was helpful to say the least, but to reiterate what Dale was saying, I thought the defense was outstanding.
Right, spectacular stuff. And of course, they're going out to Denver now. This week, we're going to talk about the Steelers defense coming up in a little bit. But as we look at the key matchups, let's begin on the offensive side of the football for the Steelers going against this Denver Broncos team. And to me, one of the key matchups is going to be Najee Harris against their linebacker, Alex Singleton. Singleton's a guy who 2 years ago was fifth in the NFL in tackles. Last year he was third in the NFL in tackles. And he comes by that honestly. He fills the hole quickly. He's a very aggressive middle linebacker. And the Steelers won the time of possession, actually dominated 35-36 to 24-24 for Atlanta in week one. And guys, I just think that if Najee Harris, and I think we're going to see a lot of the old running back, middle linebacker meeting in the hole kind of thing. I think that if the Steelers can control the clock with Najee Harris, that it's going to go a long way toward winning this game.
And the key is not just winning in the hole. Get him beyond the hole because this Denver rush defense was one of the worst in the league last season. Seattle ran on them last week in the opener. This is a team that you can run on.
Yeah, very much so. And I think both teams are coming in here wanting to run the football, control the clock. Neither one's an offensive juggernaut through the air at the moment, but if they could get some explosives on the ground, and I really like the way Harris has run, that would go a long way too.
So eventually, you're not going to be able to run every down and continue to control the clock. You're going to have to throw the football. So that leads us, Matt, to your matchup, which is the outside linebackers versus the Steelers tackles. Now, last week, Atlanta had Judon, but he hadn't really practiced with the team a whole lot, and he's coming off an injury. They've got three pretty good edge rushers in Denver that are going to present, I would think, some difficulties for these offensive tackles.
Yeah, Browning, Benito, and Cooper, who had 2 sacks last week, are a really good trio. They're all good edge benders, flexible, speed guys, kind of 3-4 defensive or outside linebacker types. They could definitely cause some problems. And
Fields has a propensity, unfortunately, in his career to be sacked. So this is something that he's going to have to be very well aware of.
No doubt, and as you see there on the highlights, Denver had 2 safeties last week. You don't often see that where a team records 2 safeties in a game and loses.
Doesn't happen often at all.
No. So the Steelers are definitely going to have to make sure they get a hat on those guys on the outside.
Okay, so now we've run the football successfully with Najee. We blocked successfully, right, for Fields. Now your matchup is, can they get the ball to George Pickens against Pat Surtain, who had a really good week against DK Metcalf. Now we know what George Pickens did against A.J. Terrell, who, by the way, had kind of a rough week. I mean, Najee Harris really banged into him, and then Pickens had a good game against him.
Yeah, and Surtain's one of the best in the league at cornerback, and Pickens considers himself one of the best in the league as well. And he may well be on his way to showing that is the case here. 6 catches for 85 yards last week. But Surtain will follow guys around the field. He was on Metcalf, I believe, for all but one of his pass routes last week. Held him, I think, to 3 catches for 29 yards. The Steelers can do some things. I don't know that Metcalf goes into the slot a whole lot.
Pickens went in the slot a fair amount.
Yeah. So I would expect some of that this week and trying to get him off of that coverage, maybe a little more motion from Pickens as well.
I don't think you're going to get much argument, though, that Surtain's the best Denver Bronco player.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a really, really good corner.
And this is the life of George Pickens now, right? Every week you're going to run into an A.J. Terrell, you're going to run into a Pat Surtain, and if you want to be elite, you're going to have it right in front of you.
Yep. And he's very, very impressive in his own right, but this is going to be quite the challenge.
Oh, it's going to be fun to watch for sure. And speaking of George Pickens, that leads us to our Yinz Chat. And Yinz Chat regular season challenges are back. You can answer trivia and predictive questions, and compete against Steelers Nation for a chance to win a football autographed by George Pickens. Remember to play every week for a chance to win the season-long grand prize. Up next, a look at the Steelers defense against the rookie first-round quarterback Bo Nix and the Broncos offense, coming your way on the matchup presented by Shell Polymers.
Want to get gear direct from the team? Shop all things black and gold at the official Steelers Pro Shop located at Acrisure Stadium. Get the latest sideline apparel and hats, jerseys of your favorite players, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can only find here. Don't forget, you aren't game day ready without a terrible towel. The Steelers Pro Shop has everything you need to be part of the legendary Steelers Nation. Come experience the Acrisure Stadium shopping environment or shop online at shop.steelers.com.
Welcome back to the matchup presented by Shell Polymers. We're continuing to get you ready for the Steelers and the Denver Broncos 4:25 kickoff on Sunday. The Steelers looking to go 2-0 and 2-0 on the road to begin the 2024 season. And guys, when we look at this Broncos team, Sean Payton feels very much still like he's tearing things down, although they were 8-9 last year. I mean, with a not very impressive looking roster. But as you look at this Broncos team, Matt, they lose in week 1 to Seattle 26-20 with a rookie Bo Nix making his first ever NFL start.
Yeah, and Dale mentioned they came out hot. They hung around early on, 2 safeties. I mean, that's a strange situation to not win a game like that. But Seattle started to take control of the game as it went along too. I mean, remember, that's a very young coaching staff in Seattle, and they confused Nix pretty well. They got after him pretty well. Seattle leaned on a really good running back, Kenneth Walker, and as we talked about before, you can have success on the ground against this defense.
Dale?
Yeah, when you look at what Seattle did to them, you mentioned in the previous segment that Denver wants to run the football. Nix was their leading rusher in that game last week. He had 35 rushing yards. So Seattle did a nice job shutting that down. If the Steelers can do the same, they should have some success.
They've invested a lot of money in that offensive line, and
Yes.
It hasn't been highly productive for them.
No, it's sort of like last week, though. It's a better run blocking line. There's a lot of mashers than light on your feet, agile pass protector types. But one of the problems is it's just their skill guys aren't spectacular.
Right. Okay. So
and it's a rookie quarterback.
Right. Let's take a look at the keys for the Steelers defense, which shut out a veteran quarterback in Kirk Cousins, now goes against a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix. But you don't want to talk about that. You want to talk about just the challenges of playing in Denver, especially in September.
Right. So before the schedule came out, we all knew the Steelers were going to go to Denver. And the second I saw the schedule, the first thing I wanted to say was, or look at was, boy, I hope it's not early. And it's early. And the logic behind it is simple. It's like playing in Miami this time of year. Fatigue because of the light air. There's just not enough oxygen. It's a hard adjustment. And it's harder on the defense. They take the brunt of it. Defenses can wear down. That being said, I think the Steeler defense right now is very deep. I mean, it's very healthy, very deep. The Herbigs and Adams and a trio of off-the-ball linebackers, if you can keep rotating them and not be on the field too long, time of possession, you should be able to withstand it. But fourth quarter always favors Denver. And if you look at the history of the organization, they have a tremendous record in September at home.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, though, that Matt is making about the depth of the Steelers defense, especially early on. Now, they've got a couple of injuries on offense, but right now, knock on wood, the defense is healthy, and it goes into this season very deep. I think that's one of the things we all like about this defense, especially that front seven. There's a lot of depth there.
Yeah, they were able to rotate a lot of guys last week, even against Atlanta. They really, outside of Patrick Queen and some of the defensive backs, everybody else was, nobody else was above like 60% snap count in that game. So if you can do that in this game, and your offense also possesses the football for about 35 minutes again, that bodes well.
Okay, so now you got a rookie quarterback, right, that the Steelers are facing. And when you look at Mike Tomlin, since the merger, only Bill Belichick has more wins against rookie quarterbacks. Only Don Shula has a better winning percentage. That's pretty good company for a head coach to be keeping. Unfortunately now, the Steelers were 1-2 against rookie quarterbacks a season ago. DTR beat him for Cleveland and then C.J. Stroud for Houston. So your key, though, is Terry Lawson and this coaching staff scheming up against a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, and Matt mentioned it earlier that Seattle's coaching staff did a great job of mixing coverages and things of that nature against Bo Nix. He threw 42 passes last week, but they went for 138 yards. He averaged 3.8 yards per pass attempt.
Per attempt.
Per attempt. That's really bad. Tomlin is 24-6 in his career against rookie quarterbacks. That's the best winning percentage, as you mentioned. In this era. So, if they can do that, if they can confuse this kid, make him make some mistakes. He was 2 of 12 on passes of 10 or more yards down the field last week. If they can do that to him,
2 interceptions too.
Yeah. Ugly.
Yeah, not so good.
No, not so good. All right, that leads me to my key, which is Joey Porter against Cortland Sutton. And much like we were talking about with George Pickens always getting the top corner, Joey Porter Jr., Mike Tomlin kind of alluded to it on Tuesday. Hey, how did you think he played in his matchup against Drake London, who he held to 2 catches for 15 yards? Great. Now he's got to go do it against Cortland Sutton. I mean, that's just the life of a top corner. And, Matt, I think you made the point that Patrick Surtain is clearly Denver's best player. Of the skill position guys, maybe Sutton's their best skill position guy now as they're waiting for Bo Nix to develop. They haven't gotten much out of the running back position. They don't have a real game breaker at the tight end position. So you can take Sutton out of the game. You're taking out maybe their best weapon.
Yeah, I think he is. I mean, he's not a superstar. He's a good player.
Yep.
But, I mean, he's of their skill guys, he's probably the most dangerous. And the stat that Dale referenced about when they did throw downfield, usually it was his direction.
Right. So that's a big I mean, if Joey Porter Jr. can take him out of the game, it's hard to imagine how they'll score a lot of points in this game.
Yeah, I mean, just don't make the mistake. Terrell Austin spoke about it today. He's like, we just have to be in position. We can't get out of position because Sean Payton will take advantage of that. He'll find that mismatch or get somebody aligned wrongly. And so if they can do that and confuse the young quarterback, and Joey Porter Jr. can take Sutton out of the game, they should be in good shape.
One other thing I wanted to throw in is you mentioned Peyton. Compared to last week, I bet he does a better job of helping against T.J. Watt.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't mean they're going to take T.J. Watt out of the game, but
Right.
I bet they'll have more bodies that direction and a better plan to at least get in his way.
He had a dominating game.
Oh, it was unbelievable.
Yeah. So that obviously, right, that's the low-hanging fruit.
Can't let that happen.
The low-hanging fruit on the show. Come on now. So the Steelers will look to improve to 2-0 on the season when they visit Denver at Empower Field at Mile High. Kickoff is coming your way at 4:25. For Dale Lolley and for Matt Williamson, I'm Rob King. Thanks for watching this edition of The Matchup, presented by Shell Polymers.